Most people think getting rich is about finding the perfect investment, but Charlie Munger would almost laugh at that, because the fastest way to build wealth often has nothing to do with investing more, and everything to do with spending less on the normal stuff that's quietly wrecking you. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The biggest destroyers of freedom don't look like disasters. They look like upgrades. They look like adult life. They look like status. And if you're paying for approval, you're basically choosing a life with a permanent monthly bill, one that never compounds, never relaxes, and never lets you feel truly rich. Now, here's the paradox that flips everything. Some people earn a lot and stay broke, while others earn less and still build real wealth. Why? Because the second group doesn't just avoid debt. They avoid the small termite purchases that drain their future in silence. And once you learn to spot those termites, you can free up money fast, sometimes within weeks, without feeling like you're cutting your life. So let's talk about the purchases that feel harmless, but quietly steal your time, your options, and your peace. Because when you stop buying what keeps you stuck, you don't just save money. Your freedom starts showing up like a paycheck you didn't know you had. Charlie Munger used to point out something uncomfortable. The worst wealth leaks look normal. They don't scream disaster. They whisper convenience, comfort, you deserve it. A person thinks it's harmless spending, but it quietly rewrites their future anyway. It's like termites in a wall, silent, steady, and weirdly polite about it. One small bite won't ruin anyone, but 10 bites every day will. And while someone's busy feeling fine, their freedom is being sold in tiny pieces. That's how people stay busy, stay broke, and never understand why they're not rich. The scary part? Most of it is voluntary, automated, and socially approved status behavior. A person usually doesn't go into debt because of one dramatic mistake. It's the monthly nothing charges. Subscriptions, delivery fees, upgrades, little add-ons. A streaming bundle here, a premium plan there, and suddenly it's a second mortgage in disguise. They call it convenience, but it's recurring spending that never stops to breathe. Meanwhile, interest is waiting like a meter that never turns off, smiling politely. The bank doesn't need to trap them. They trap themselves with small yeses. And the status part is sneaky. Everyone has it, so it feels safe to keep paying. Termites love everyone does it because nobody checks the foundation until it tilts. Here's how it usually plays out. Someone tells themselves it's only $12, only $29, only $7s. But only is a magic word that makes math disappear. They never light a $20 bill on fire, yet they'll leak it through friction fees without blinking. The old investor would call that a failure of attention, not a failure of income. Because wealth isn't just money, it's the ability to say no without fear. And fear often starts with clutter, cluttered bills, cluttered apps, cluttered choices. When everything is small, nobody feels urgency, so nothing gets fixed. Then the person wonders why investing feels impossible, like it's for other people. A practical move he'd respect is boring on purpose. Run a termite audit. A person lists every recurring charge, every auto-renew, every free trial that stayed. They cut 3 things today, not next week, and they don't negotiate with themselves. They also set a simple rule. If it doesn't buy time, health, or skill, it waits 30 days. That pause is powerful because it turns impulse into a choice, not a reflex. And since the mortgage already claims a big chunk of life, the small leaks matter even more. The goal isn't to suffer. It's to stop paying for things that don't return freedom, because tiny savings don't feel heroic, but they quietly rebuild a person's options. Then comes the part most people miss. Termites don't just eat cash, they eat momentum. Every extra $100 in spending is $100, not investing, not compounding, not growing into wealth. A person might think it's not enough to matter, but that's exactly the trap. In many lives, the difference between rich and stressed is one consistent habit: Even a simple index fund habit can beat a flashy lifestyle habit over time. If someone needs a starting point, they can look at broad, low-cost funds like VTI or an S&P 500 fund. Nothing magical, just steady exposure, low fees, and patience that outlasts feelings. And yes, patience is hard when the world sells urgency like it's oxygen. There's another quiet killer: buying things that lose value fast, then financing them. Even when depreciation sounds like a boring word, it's a real tax on someone's future. A person pays interest on something that's shrinking, and they call it normal adult life. But normal isn't the same as smart, and normal rarely leads to freedom. That's why buy now, pay later is such a smooth lie. It turns a want into a contract. The contract might be small, but the mindset is huge. It teaches the brain that debt is a tool for comfort. Soon the person isn't choosing, they're maintaining, juggling, and hoping nothing breaks. And when life hits, they discover their options were already spent. A mentorish way to see it is this: termites love autopilot, and autopilot loves emotion. Someone gets tired, bored, stressed, and they soothe it with spending because it's easy. Then they wake up with fewer choices and call it bad luck, which is painfully unfair to themselves. A person can flip it by building a simple buffer: 1 month of expenses, then 2, then 3. That buffer is not just money, it's dignity, it's calm, it's decision power. And once the buffer exists, investing stops feeling scary and starts feeling natural. And once someone starts paying attention to these small leaks, a bigger truth shows up. A lot of normal spending is really just status in disguise. A person can tell the difference between joy and status by one clue: anxiety. If buying it comes with "I hope people notice," it's not pleasure, it's performance. And performances don't end. They renew, upgrade, and demand more spending next month. That's why status acts like a quiet tax. It charges forever and never asks permission. The bill shows up as debt, stress, and a life planned around other people's opinions. Meanwhile, wealth is built in private, when nobody's clapping and the work is boring. Freedom grows when someone stops trying to look rich and starts trying to be calm. That calm is the real flex, even if it doesn't photograph well. Most people don't wake up thinking, "Today I'll trade my future for approval." It happens in small moves: a nicer phone, a bigger watch, a trendier place to live. The logic sounds harmless. It's just a little upgrade until the pattern locks in. Soon the mortgage is bigger, the car payment is louder, and interest is chewing quietly. And because status is social, it spreads fast. Everyone's keeping up, so it feels normal. But normal doesn't mean safe, and it definitely doesn't mean it leads to being rich. A person can be earning well and still be broke, because their identity is on a lease. That's the trap. The lifestyle looks successful, while the balance sheet looks scared. Here's the punchline nobody likes: approval doesn't compound. Investing compounds, skills compound, relationships compound, even health compounds. But status resets the scoreboard every time someone else buys something newer, so the person keeps running, sweating, posting, upgrading, trying to stay ahead. And the price isn't just money, it's attention, peace, and the ability to say no. If they're always spending to be seen, they're rarely building wealth to be free. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole and calling it ambition. At some point, they have to ask, who exactly is being paid here? A practical shift is what some call stealth wealth, without the cringe. A person sets a rule: their budget pays freedom first, status last. That might mean automatic investing on payday before the fun money can vanish. It might mean a smaller rent or mortgage so their life has breathing room. And yes, it can feel awkward when friends love flashy purchases and treat yourself talk. But awkward is temporary. Debt is stubborn, and interest doesn't care about vibes. If someone needs a simple guide, they can read The Psychology of Money and The Millionaire Next Door. Those books don't glamorize being rich. They explain how people quietly become it. A person can also run a quick status test on any purchase. Ask, if nobody could ever see this, would I still want it? If the answer is no, it's probably a status expense wearing a cute outfit. Ask again, will this add freedom in 12 months, or will it add payments? That second question is brutal because it points straight at debt and future stress. And when someone realizes a purchase is mainly for appearance, it gets easier to pause. Not forever, just long enough to remember what wealth is supposed to do. Wealth isn't applause, it's options when life gets real. Sometimes the cleanest move is to change the scoreboard entirely. Instead of measuring success by what's visible, measure it by what's invisible. How many months could a person live if work vanished tomorrow? 1, 3, 12. How much investing happens without needing motivation, like a quiet machine in the background? How low is their stress when a surprise bill hits? Panic, annoyance, or just okay handled? That's the kind of score the old investor respected. Resilience, not attention. Because attention is rented, but freedom is owned. And ownership is what turns a life from fragile to strong. There's also a sneaky cousin of status. I deserve it spending. Sometimes it's real self-care, but sometimes it's just exhaustion buying a quick dopamine hit. A person works hard, feels underappreciated, and tries to fix it with a purchase. But the feeling doesn't last, so the buying repeats and the debt quietly stacks. That's why the smartest treat is often boring. Sleep, walking, a cheap dinner with someone safe, or a $20 book that upgrades judgment. Because judgment protects wealth like a gatekeeper, and when judgment improves, investing becomes less emotional and more automatic. Then the person starts to feel rich in a new way, steady, not shiny. Soon enough, status pressure runs into a very specific temptation: the new car. It's the perfect social symbol, visible, praised, and packed with "you made it" energy. But it also carries depreciation like a shadow and often drags interest behind it. So the next lesson isn't about being cheap. It's about being precise under pressure, because the moment someone wants the car to feel important, they're already negotiating with themselves. And that negotiation is where freedom either gets protected or quietly sold. So before the smell of new makes the brain go soft, there's a better way to think. That's where the next topic hits. Hard. A new car smells like success, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. It's not transportation at first. It's identity, applause, and a rolling status badge. A person feels rich for about 2 weeks, then the payment shows up like reality knocking. And the wild part is depreciation starts immediately, like a silent timer, the moment they drive off. Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett didn't avoid new cars because they were cheap. They avoided them because they were precise. They hated paying full price for shrinking value. They treated a car like a toaster with wheels, useful, not sacred. That mindset alone saves more wealth than most people realize. The typical buyer doesn't picture the car as an asset with a life cycle. They picture it as a reward. I worked hard, so I earned this. And sure, reward matters, but debt is a strange way to celebrate because the reward ends, but the monthly bill keeps performing its little routine. Then interest joins the party, and suddenly the person is paying extra for the privilege of losing value. That's like ordering a pizza and paying a fee for it to get smaller every minute. Funny idea, brutal reality. Yet it's common, socially approved spending, which is why it's so easy to miss how it crushes long-term investing. Here's a practical way to see the illusion. The car is bought twice. First, it's bought with money, down payment, taxes, fees, insurance spikes. Second, it's bought with freedom, because the payment reduces choices every month. A person might say, "It's fine, I can afford it." But afford is a shallow word. Can they afford it and still build wealth, still invest, still breathe? Or does it turn them into a person who must keep earning the same paycheck forever? That's the real cost. The car quietly becomes a boss. And bosses don't usually look like leather seats and LED headlights. The old investor would tell them to reframe the win. Instead of, "I deserve a new car," think, "I deserve a future without stress." If they want a smart play, they can buy reliable used models with low depreciation curves. Think Toyota Corolla, Camry, Honda Civic Accord, Mazda 3, boring, sturdy, respected by mechanics. They can pay cash if possible, or keep the loan short and small if not. They can also shop insurance before buying, because the cheapest car can become expensive overnight. And if someone loves cars, fine. Set a car fund after investing, not before. That way, joy doesn't come packaged with debt. There's a reason Buffett jokes about simple living. It keeps math on his side. If a person keeps a car 10 to 15 years, the average annual cost drops hard. They stop paying the newness tax, and they let compounding work somewhere else. That somewhere else can be investing automatically into broad funds or paying down high-interest debt. Even paying extra on a mortgage principal can beat a flashy upgrade, depending on the rate. The point isn't to never enjoy life, it's to avoid enjoying life on a leash. And once someone feels what no car payment feels like, they don't miss the showroom smell. They start to feel rich in a quieter, steadier way. A person can also use a simple rule that kills impulse fast. Drive the difference. If their dream car payment is $700 and a sensible car is $300, they invest the $400 difference. They do it every month. No drama, no negotiation, just autopilot discipline. After a few years, they'll see real wealth growing, numbers that don't fade like a new car high. That's when the status itch calms down, because the brain finally trusts the plan. And ironically, that's when they could buy the nicer car without ruining freedom. But now they won't want to, because the trade looks silly in daylight. That's how precision starts replacing impulse. There's one more twist. New cars often come with expensive habits attached. People treat them special, so they pay extra for premium gas, dealer service, cosmetic fixes. It becomes a lifestyle inside a lifestyle, all fueled by spending and keeping up appearances. And if they financed it, interest is already running, so every extra cost hits harder. That's why the smartest car strategy is almost boring, safe, reliable, low drama, long holding period. Boring is powerful because compounding loves stability and hates churn. A person doesn't get rich by resetting their life every year. They get rich by letting good decisions stay in place long enough to multiply. And once they see how one shiny purchase can drain years of investing, the next danger becomes obvious. Because the car isn't the only thing that loses value fast. Lots of normal purchases do. The real killer is when depreciation teams up with interest and turns into a double executioner. That's when debt stops being a tool and starts being a trap with a smile. So the next topic isn't about cars at all. It's about the math behind the pain. Once someone understands that math, they'll never sign the same kind of contract again, or at least they'll hesitate long enough to save themselves. And that hesitation is where freedom is born. A person thinks the danger is the price tag, but the real danger is the combo meal. Depreciation is the item getting smaller, and interest is the fee for watching it shrink. That's why financing a fast depreciating thing is financial self-sabotage with nice packaging. It feels normal, even grown up, but the math is quietly brutal. They're not just spending, they're paying extra to lose value faster. And the scary part is, it doesn't look like a mistake on day one. It looks like a manageable payment, which is how debt sells itself. The payment is small enough to swallow until it starts swallowing choices. He'd say, this is where people confuse affordability with wisdom. A lender can make almost anything affordable by stretching the term. But stretching a term is like stretching a rubber band. It snaps back as total cost. A person ends up paying thousands more, not because they wanted more, but because they waited. Interest rewards the bank for time, even when time is hurting the buyer. And if the item is depreciating, time isn't neutral, it's a weapon. So the longer the loan, the more the buyer pays, while owning less and less. That's not building wealth, that's renting stress. Here's a simple analogy a child can get. Imagine buying an ice cream cone on a loan. Every month you pay, while the ice cream is melting. At the end, you've paid extra for something that literally disappeared. That's depreciation plus interest, just dressed up in adult paperwork. And the reason it's common is because the pain is delayed. Humans are wired to fear today's discomfort more than tomorrow's regret. Marketers know that, lenders know that, and status pressure pours gasoline on it. So a person signs, smiles, and doesn't notice the trap until later. A practical defense is to separate needs from shrinks-fast wants. If it depreciates quickly, electronics, trendy furniture, fancy upgrades, avoid long debt. If a person can't pay cash without wrecking their buffer, it's probably too soon. They can still enjoy life, but they do it in a way that protects freedom. One trick is the cash test. If paying cash would feel painful, the purchase is large. Large purchases deserve slow thinking, not a swipe and a signature. And slow thinking is how wealth is protected in a loud world. Because being rich often looks like waiting when everyone else is rushing. If someone wants a clean rule, here it is. Never borrow long for something that won't last long. A short-lived thing should be paid with short-lived money, not years of future labor. That's why credit card debt is so dangerous. It's interest on yesterday's spending. It's like paying rent for an argument you had last month. A person can escape it with a simple plan. Stop new charges, then pay it down aggressively. They can use methods like avalanche, highest interest first, or snowball, smallest balance first. And while doing that, they can build a small emergency buffer so life doesn't push them back into debt. That buffer is what keeps the plan alive when reality shows up. When investing enters the picture, this becomes even more painful. Every dollar used to feed interest is a dollar not compounding into wealth. It's not just the dollar, it's the lost growth, the lost time, the lost freedom. That's why high-interest debt can beat the market in the worst way, against you. Munger would prefer a person to protect the downside before chasing upside. Downside is sneaky because it feels boring until it becomes a crisis. So the smart sequence is often kill toxic debt, build a buffer, then invest steadily. Not sexy, but it's how people quietly get rich. A real-life example. A person finances a $3,000 laptop on a store plan at high interest. 2 years later, the laptop is slow, the battery is weak, and they're still paying. They basically paid premium pricing for a tool that aged like milk. A better play could be buying a solid, used, refurbished model or saving cash for a month or two. Or using a low-interest option only if it's truly 0% and they already have the money set aside. The goal is to stop turning normal wants into long contracts. Because contracts are serious, contracts steal future paychecks quietly. And most people sign them for things that don't deserve that power. Once someone sees depreciation plus interest clearly, they start scanning their life differently. They notice which purchases are shrinking and which ones are growing. Skills grow, health grows, relationships grow, good investing grows, status stuff usually shrinks. And then a bigger question appears. What about the biggest contract most people ever sign? The one with a roof, a bank, and a mortgage that can feel like, I made it. That's where people can look rich while becoming trapped. And that's exactly what the next topic is about. A house can feel like the finish line, but sometimes it's a very expensive starting gun. It whispers, you made it, while quietly signing you up for years of pressure. A person buys too much house, and their paycheck becomes a servant to a mortgage. Suddenly, the bank gets the best version of their life. First, every month, no excuses. And the scary part is, the house can look like wealth from the outside. Inside, it can feel like debt, tight margins, and a constant low-grade stress. That's how someone becomes house rich and cash poor at the same time. They look rich, but they don't feel free. Charlie Munger and Buffett never treated a home like a trophy. They treated it like a tool, shelter, stability, and maybe a reasonable long-term bet. But a tool shouldn't drain the worker, and a home shouldn't eat the household. When the payment is too big, everything else gets starved. Investing, savings, even joy. Then life happens. A repair, a medical bill, a job shake-up, and the dream home feels fragile. The person starts living defensively, not creatively. And when they live defensively, freedom shrinks because every decision is made under pressure. Pressure makes people make dumb spending choices just to cope. A lot of people confuse approved with affordable. A lender approves a number based on their risk model, not your peace. They're fine if you struggle, as long as you pay. So a person hears yes and thinks it's a blessing. But sometimes it's a trap with a tie on. That's why the old investor's vibe was always, don't max out, build margins. Margins mean room to breathe, room to invest, room to handle surprises without debt. And margins are what quietly create wealth while other people are stuck maintaining. Maintenance looks responsible, but it can secretly be a slow bleed. Here's a simple test. If the mortgage vanished tomorrow, what would change? If the answer is, my entire life opens up, the mortgage might be too heavy. A person should feel relief, not shock, when thinking about their housing costs, because housing is supposed to support life, not dominate it. A practical rule some people use: keep housing costs low enough that investing is still easy. Not possible if everything goes perfectly, but easy, like brushing teeth. That could mean buying below what they qualify for, or renting a bit longer while building a bigger down payment. It's not glamorous, but it's how rich people stay calm. And home ownership comes with hidden spending nobody posts on social media. Taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, furniture, landscaping, little leaks with big teeth. A person can buy a house and then feel forced into a whole new lifestyle of upgrades. Because status sneaks back in, this room needs better everything, then the home becomes a stage, not a shelter. And if they're financing upgrades too, interest piles on top of the mortgage, like a second roof. That's when the wealth story collapses into a debt story, quietly. The house didn't ruin them, the lack of margin did. If someone wants to apply this right now, the move is shockingly unsexy. Run the numbers. They can estimate total monthly housing cost, plus an average monthly maintenance budget. Then they compare it to their income and ask, can I still invest 15–20% without feeling squeezed? If not, the house is too much for their current life, even if the bank says otherwise. A person can also consider house hacking ideas, renting a room, buying a duplex, or choosing a smaller place in a better financial zone. Not everyone wants that. But it's a real path to wealth without pretending. And if they're already in a heavy mortgage, the goal becomes rebuilding margin, cutting other spending, refinancing if sensible, increasing income carefully. Because margin is the difference between feeling trapped and feeling free. The emotional truth is this: people don't buy too much house because they love square footage. They buy it because it feels like safety, respect, and I finally matter. But mattering isn't a kitchen island, and respect isn't an interest rate. A person can matter in a small home with a big emergency fund and steady investing. That kind of rich doesn't show off, but it sleeps well. And sleeping well is a form of wealth the world underestimates. So the next thing to question isn't the house itself. It's the voice that said, if the lender approves it, it must be right. That voice is where the next topic starts. Now the real tension shows up. The bank says yes, but should the person? Because approval is not the same as wisdom, and leverage is not the same as freedom. A person can be one signature away from years of stress and still feel excited in the moment. That's why the next lesson matters: how to recognize when yes is actually a polite warning. Once someone learns that, they stop outsourcing their life to a lender's spreadsheet. They start protecting their wealth like it's a living thing that needs air. And when wealth has air, it grows. So the next topic is about saying no at the right time and why that's a superpower. Just because a lender says yes doesn't mean your life should say yes. A bank is not a therapist, not a mentor, not a guardian of your freedom. It's a business that makes money on interest, fees, and predictable behavior. So when they approve a bigger mortgage or a bigger loan, it's not love, it's math. A person hears approval and feels chosen, like they passed some adult test. But the test that matters is different. Will this choice make me calmer or more trapped? Because wealth isn't a number. It's how much control someone has over their time. And control evaporates fast when debt becomes the default setting. Banks often approve based on gross income and tidy assumptions about life. They don't price in burnout, layoffs, medical surprises, or the fact that humans get tired. They also don't care if a person has zero margin left after paying the mortgage. If the payment clears, the bank's happy. If the person's stressed, that's personal. That's why the old investor's instinct was always protect the downside first. Downside protection looks like cash reserves, low fixed costs, and fewer obligations. It's boring, but boring is what keeps people free when the economy gets weird. A flashy, approved life can collapse faster than a modest, underbought one. Here's the trick. Lenders sell maximum leverage like it's confidence, but maximum leverage is just maximum fragility wearing a suit. When someone's fixed payments are high, they can't adapt. They can't quit a bad job, can't move easily, can't take a risk that could grow wealth. They become a prisoner of stability, which sounds safe until it becomes suffocating. And that's where spending starts turning emotional. They treat themselves because life feels heavy. Then the cycle tightens. More spending, more debt, less investing, less freedom. It's a slow squeeze, and it's incredibly common. A practical move is to choose a personal approval standard that beats the bank standard. For example, I only accept payments that still let me invest automatically every month. Or I only borrow if I could still pay this during a bad year. A person can stress test their budget like a storm is coming, even when the sky is blue. Because storms always come, maybe not today, but eventually. And if they can survive a storm without panic, they're quietly rich in resilience. That resilience is what makes a person dangerous, in a good way. In the marketplace, they can walk away, and walking away is power. Another simple tool: set a margin target. Margin means money left after necessities, enough to save, invest, and handle surprises. If someone's mortgage and debt payments swallow most of their income, margin disappears. Then one broken AC unit becomes a mini crisis, and crisis makes people make bad deals. So the goal is to keep fixed costs low enough that life still feels flexible. If a person needs a number, some aim for 20% plus of take-home as margin, after basics, but the exact amount depends. What matters is the feeling. Can they breathe, or are they constantly bracing? Bracing is a signal the bank's yes was too loud. If they want a real-world example, think of two neighbors. Neighbor A gets approved for a huge mortgage, the biggest house on the street, and feels proud. Neighbor B buys smaller, keeps a buffer, invests the difference, and sleeps like a rock. 5 years later, the economy shifts, costs rise, maybe a job changes. Neighbor A is stressed, selling things, juggling debt, praying nothing breaks. Neighbor B has choices, maybe even opportunities, because their wealth has room to move. That's not luck. That's margin, built on purpose. And margin is how people quietly become rich without looking flashy. Now, a person might think, okay, but what about making my home beautiful? That's where the next temptation walks in, wearing designer shoes, furniture, and upgrades. Because once the mortgage is signed, the house starts asking for more spending to match it. A person begins buying rooms, not just living in them, and that's where legacy gets traded for appearances. One couch, one table, one must-have at a time. The bank got paid. Now the showroom wants its turn. So the next topic is about what actually builds wealth inside a home, not perfection, margins. A person walks into a showroom and everything feels like a new life. The lighting is flattering, the couch looks like success, and the price tags feel negotiable. But negotiable is often just debt wearing a friendly smile. A room can look rich while the bank account looks tired. That's the silent trade. Comfort today for options tomorrow. And options are what actually create wealth. Because options create freedom. If a person spends every extra dollar filling space, they starve the one thing that matters: margin. Margin is the difference between feeling trapped and feeling in control. Most furniture buying isn't about sitting. It's about status and identity. It's adulting. It's we're doing well. It's people will be impressed. And just like before, that kind of spending tends to renew itself forever. Because once one room is done, another room starts feeling behind. So the person upgrades, then upgrades again, then adds decor, then replaces what still works. Meanwhile, interest quietly charges rent on those choices, especially if they financed it. That's why a house can keep someone broke, even if they bought it responsibly. The house becomes a project, not a home. A mentor would tell them this: function beats flex. A couch is for rest, a table is for meals, a bed is for sleep. None of these need a brand name. If something is sturdy and comfortable, it's already doing its job. So the smart play is to buy slowly, buy used, and let time do the filtering. Used doesn't mean low quality. It often means someone else paid the depreciation. That's the quiet win, letting other people fund the newness tax. And when a person does that consistently, their wealth stops leaking in invisible ways. They start stacking margin without feeling deprived. If someone wants practical steps, start with a one-room rule. They furnish one room at a time with a clear cap, and only after investing is handled. They check Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, estate sales, and local thrift stores first. They look for solid wood, simple lines, and pieces that can take a beating. They avoid financing furniture like they avoid financing fast food, because it's the same concept. And if they do want something nice, they save cash and buy it once, not on payments. That patience feels boring at first, but boring is how freedom gets built. Because compounding loves boredom more than it loves excitement. There's also a subtle mindset shift. Stop buying a future self fantasy. A person imagines hosting perfect dinners, living like a magazine, being admired. But most of life is Tuesday night, not a photo shoot. So buying for real life beats buying for imaginary life. Real life needs durability, simplicity, and low maintenance, not a fragile statement piece. And low maintenance matters because time is part of wealth too. The more stuff someone owns, the more stuff owns their attention, which is hilarious and tragic at the same time. Another hidden cost is space itself. Big houses invite big spending because empty space feels like a problem to fix. So the person buys rugs, lamps, decor, storage, shelves, then wonders where the money went. That's why margin is a design strategy. Fewer items, fewer decisions, fewer drains. A simple home with cash reserves can feel more luxurious than a big home with anxiety. Because anxiety kills enjoyment. It turns every purchase into a quiet argument with the future. The old investor would say, protect your future self like there's someone you love, and love doesn't sign them up for unnecessary debt. Now, once someone stops overspending on furniture, another temptation shows up fast. They think, okay, I'll be disciplined, and then a shiny new gadget screams, upgrade. The world sells new like it's oxygen, phones, laptops, TVs, smart everything, and the upgrade treadmill is brutal because it mixes status, fear, and convenience in one package. A person feels behind, so they spend, then depreciation hits, and the cycle repeats. So the next topic is about escaping churn, because churn is the enemy of investing and wealth. And once someone sees how churn steals freedom, they stop calling it treating themselves. They start calling it what it is: expensive distraction. New tech doesn't just sell a product, it sells a feeling. You're ahead. For about 5 minutes, a person feels sharp, modern, almost rich. Then the world moves, a new model drops, and yesterday's premium becomes today's obsolete. That's the upgrade treadmill. Run hard, pay monthly, and never actually arrive. Marketing turns wants into emergencies. Like your life will fall apart without the newest thing. And when someone buys into that panic, spending becomes a reflex, not a decision. Reflex spending is where wealth goes to die quietly because it happens often and feels justified. It's termites with a touchscreen. A person might say, but it helps my productivity. Sometimes that's true. The problem is most upgrades aren't about productivity, they're about status and novelty. A new phone rarely changes a person's life, but it can absolutely change their budget. And if it's financed, interest shows up again like that uninvited guest who never leaves. So now the person is paying debt for a device that's depreciating fast. That's the double executioner from earlier, just in a shinier outfit. And because everyone upgrades, it feels normal, like refusing is being out of touch. But being out of touch with hype can be very in touch with freedom. A practical defense is a simple tool rule. Use tools until they break or until they block income. If a laptop still runs what you need, keep it. If a phone still calls and works, keep it. If someone creates content or runs a business, upgrades should be tied to measurable returns. For example, this camera pays for itself in X jobs, or this laptop saves me 5 hours a week. Otherwise, it's not investing. It's spending dressed as ambition. And ambition with debt is fragile. It collapses when revenue dips. That's why disciplined people look behind to the crowd, but feel ahead in real life. They're ahead in margin, not in models. If a person wants a concrete system, they can set an upgrade schedule on purpose. Phones, every 3 to 4 years, not every year. Laptops, 4-6 years if cared for. They can buy one generation behind or refurbished from reputable sellers and save a chunk. That saved chunk can go straight into investing automatically before it gets accidentally spent. And the funny part is, most people won't even notice the difference day to day. The only thing that changes is the ego, and the ego is expensive. A person who controls their ego controls their spending, and that's a real wealth skill. It's not sexy, but it's powerful. Another trap is accessories and subscriptions that ride along with tech. Cloud storage, premium apps, streaming bundles, pro versions, small fees that stack fast. A person thinks it's only $9.99, and suddenly they're donating a car payment every month. Those subscriptions don't just cost money, they create dependency and mental clutter. So a smart move is a quarterly subscription purge. Cancel anything not used weekly. Keep one entertainment service at a time, rotate them, and stop paying for guilt. Guilt is a sneaky kind of status. I should use it because I pay for it. But sunk cost isn't a reason, it's a lesson. The deeper point is this: compounding hates churn. Churn resets the game because money keeps leaving before it can grow. Wealth needs time, and time needs stability, and stability needs fewer urgent purchases. That's why the old investor would rather a person be consistent than clever. Consistency is what turns small investing into large wealth over years. And if someone wants book recommendations here, Your Money or Your Life is great for mindset, and I Will Teach You to Be Rich is practical and clear. Those books help people build systems so emotions don't run the budget. Because emotions are great for love, not for debt. Once someone steps off the upgrade treadmill, they feel something surprising, relief. They stop racing, stop comparing, stop paying to feel current. Done, and then a new temptation shows up, more seductive than gadgets, experiences, trips, VIP packages, luxury weekends, sold as memories, and you only live once. Memories are real, but debt is real too, and interest doesn't care how fun the photos look. So the next topic is about luxury experiences bought with tomorrow's money, because tomorrow eventually arrives, and it always wants its paycheck back. That's where freedom either stays intact or gets quietly traded away. Luxury experiences are sold like medicine. You need this to feel alive. And sure, joy matters, rest matters, memories matter. But when a memory comes with a minimum payment, it stops being a treat and starts being a contract. A person posts the photos, gets the likes, feels rich for a weekend, then returns to debt on Monday. That's when the nervous system learns a bad lesson. Escape is bought, not built. And if escape is bought with interest, the cost is bigger than the ticket price. It's spending today that borrows peace from tomorrow. Tomorrow always collects. A lot of people don't realize how quickly experiences can become status. It's not, I want to go, it's I want to be seen going. So they upgrade flights, upgrade hotels, upgrade dinners, upgrade everything. And each upgrade feels small compared to the total trip, so it slides through. That's the termite pattern again. Little add-ons that quietly become big numbers. Then debt enters like a quiet translator. Don't worry, it's only $1 per month, but only per month is how people stay broke while looking rich. Because wealth is built by keeping future income free, not pre-sold. A practical rule that saves people is simple. If you can't pay cash without hurting your long-term goals, you can't afford the upgrade. Not the trip necessarily, maybe the upgrade layer on top of the trip. A person can still travel, still celebrate, still live, just without financing the fantasy. They can pick one premium thing and keep the rest simple. Or they can travel off-season, use points responsibly, and skip the because we're here splurges. Because we're here is a cute phrase that destroys budgets. And budgets are not prisons, they're maps to freedom. A map is only annoying if someone wants to stay lost. Here's a clean way to think about it. Experiences should refresh life, not punish it afterward. If the trip creates a financial hangover, stress, extra shifts, skipped investing, it wasn't a gift. It was a trade, and the trade was peace for appearance. The old investor would call that a bad deal, even if it was fun. A person can design rich experiences that cost less. A beach day, a road trip, a cabin with friends. They can also set a memory fund, automatically saving each month. So joy is prepaid. Prepaid joy feels better because it doesn't come with guilt or interest. And guilt-free joy is honestly underrated. Another trap is using experiences as emotional band-aids. Someone feels burned out, lonely, underpaid, unseen, and they buy a weekend to feel powerful. But the feeling fades, so they buy another one and another, and debt becomes the routine. That's why the real fix is often lifestyle design, not luxury. More sleep, better routines, healthier friendships, meaningful work. Those compound like investing does. A person who builds that doesn't need constant escape because their normal life feels decent. And when normal life feels decent, spending gets calmer and wealth grows faster because desperation is expensive. If someone wants actionable steps, here's a simple framework. Plan, cap, and protect. Plan the experience early so prices are lower and decisions are less emotional. Cap the total cost in advance, including food and little extras, and stick to it like it's law. Protect investing first. Set the auto transfer, then spend what's left guilt-free. If they want to get nerdy, they can track cost per joy hour instead of cost per day. Some luxury moments are worth it. Many are just expensive distractions. And a person gets better at spotting the difference with practice. That's how they become rich in judgment, not just in income. A person might worry, if I don't do these things, life will pass me by. But here's the paradox. Debt makes life pass by faster because it forces constant work. Freedom slows life down in the best way. You can choose, you can rest, you can breathe. So the goal isn't never spend. It's spend in a way that doesn't steal tomorrow. That's why compounding is such a big deal. It buys future choices quietly. And choices are what make a person feel truly wealthy, even if nobody sees it. The person who can say no without fear is richer than the person who can say yes on credit. That's the kind of rich most people actually want. And once someone learns to stop buying joy with tomorrow's money, one final truth shows up. There's a price to living on your own terms, and it isn't mysterious. It's discipline. Not discipline as punishment, but discipline as protection. Because every time someone says no to a shiny impulse, they're saying yes to freedom. And freedom is the real reward that compounds. So the next topic is the simplest, hardest one, choosing long-term wealth over short-term comfort. That's where people stop being entertained and start being transformed. And that's exactly where we're going next. Getting rich isn't mysterious. It's often just stopping the wrong purchases. That's the part people hate, because it ruins the fantasy that wealth is a secret trick. Charlie Munger's vibe was blunt. Most financial pain is self-inflicted, just dressed as normal life. Not because people are dumb, but because the world is designed to make spending feel urgent. So discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about refusing to be manipulated. It's choosing long-term freedom over short-term comfort, again and again. Simple isn't easy, but it works, and it works quietly. Quiet is where wealth is built. A person doesn't need to be a genius to become rich. They need fewer bad habits than the next person, sustained over time. That's why compounding is unfair in the best way. It rewards consistency more than intensity. If someone invests a little every month and keeps debt low, time does the heavy lifting. But if they keep resetting their life, new car, new upgrades, new status moves, time can't help them. Time can't compound money that keeps leaking out. So discipline is basically leak prevention plus patience. Not sexy, but extremely powerful. A practical approach is to build a default life that protects wealth automatically. Auto-invest on payday, then live on what remains. So investing isn't a mood, it's a system. Keep fixed costs low enough that one surprise doesn't trigger debt. Treat the mortgage like a commitment, not a flex, and refuse loans for shrinking stuff. Then keep a simple rule for spending. Buy fewer things but buy better when it truly matters. That way money stops scattering and starts concentrating into freedom. And freedom isn't just more options, it's less fear. Less fear changes everything. A person can also treat discipline like training, not deprivation. Start small. A 30-day no impulse buys challenge with a list of wants saved for later. Most wants fade when given time, which is hilarious once you notice it. They can swap habits, cooking at home, walking more, canceling subscriptions, buying used. Those moves feel tiny, but they stack into real wealth because they create margin. Margin then becomes investing fuel, and investing fuel becomes compounding. Compounding then becomes freedom, and freedom becomes confidence. It's a chain reaction, and it starts with one boring decision today. The old investor would also say, guard your environment. If someone's friends only talk about status, upgrades, and treat yourself, it's harder. Not because friends are bad, but because humans copy the tribe without noticing. So a person can curate inputs, fewer ads, fewer temptation apps, fewer influencer triggers. They can follow voices that reinforce sanity, long-term thinkers, simple living creators, investors who talk about risk honestly. They can read books that build judgment. The Simple Path to Wealth, The Psychology of Money, even Rich Dad, Poor Dad for mindset contrast. The point is to keep the brain pointed toward freedom, not toward shopping, because the brain goes where attention goes. Discipline also means telling the truth about debt. Debt is not evil, but it is always a claim on future income. So every debt payment is a future self working for a past self spending. That's why high-interest debt is especially toxic. It punishes you for being human. And once someone starts paying it off, something magical happens. They feel lighter fast. That lightness is the beginning of being rich, even before the numbers look impressive. Because richness is partly emotional, the relief of not being squeezed. Relief is a form of freedom. A person might still ask, but how do I stay motivated? Here's the honest answer. Motivation is unreliable, so use systems instead. Make it easy to do the right thing and annoying to do the wrong thing. Auto-pay debt, auto-invest, remove saved cards. Keep a 48-hour wait rule for big spending. And celebrate progress in a way that doesn't sabotage it, like tracking net worth, not status. Net worth doesn't care about opinions, it cares about math. Math is cold, but it's fair, and fairness is a gift in a noisy world. That's why disciplined people eventually look lucky. And right when someone thinks discipline is all sacrifice, a paradox appears. The more they control spending, the more fun they can have, because it's guilt-free. The more they invest, the more choices they get, and choices feel like being rich. The less they chase status, the less they pay the invisible tax of comparison. So discipline isn't a cage, it's the key to living on your own terms. But there's one final piece that ties it all together: the story you tell yourself about money. If the story is, I need to look rich, you'll stay trapped. If the story is, I want freedom, everything changes, starting right at the beginning. If you made it this far, here's the challenge. Don't just agree with these ideas, use them. Which termite purchase is quietly eating your wealth right now? Status spending, upgrades, a car payment, a too big mortgage, or debt disguised as convenience. If you cut just one of them this week and redirect that money into investing, what changes in 6 months, in 3 years, in 10? Be honest, are you trying to look rich or are you trying to live free? What's one habit you know you need to stop because it keeps you stuck, paying interest, chasing status, or buying things that depreciate you own them? And what would your life look like if your spending finally matched your real goal, freedom? Now tell me in the comments, what's the number one purchase you're cutting first? And what are you going to do with the money instead? If this gave you clarity, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because we're going to keep breaking down the real rules of wealth, the traps that keep people broke, and the decisions that help you get rich without losing your peace.